Sweat beaded on Alex's brow, but not from the muggy August afternoon. The heavy metal blasting through his earbuds barely drowned out the other voice, the insidious one that scratched inside his skull. As he polished the chrome on his Harley, its gleaming surface felt almost surgical in its perfection. Wiping down the tank, Alex performed a meticulous cleaning ritual, like preparing for an operation. Each swipe of the cloth was intended to cut away at the insistent whispers. He suited up, a slow, controlled process in defiance of the summer heat. Zipping his leather jacket, a flicker of movement crossed his peripheral vision. His head jerked towards the garage window, but there was nothing, except Alex didn't relax. There was a lingering sense of being watched, an unseen presence clinging to the stifling air like a malevolent fog. He shuddered, pulling on his helmet, and turned the key in the ignition. The roar of the engine might be the only thing capable of silencing the voice.
The mindless scrolling was broken by a jolt of electricity. There he was. Dark eyes under a tousled sweep of hair stared back at her from the tiny dating app screen. An angled jawline, a half grin hinting at danger and excitement. This was no carefully curated suburban boyfriend. This was Jamie's escape from the predictable, safe monotony of small-town life. Yet, beneath the exhilaration, she felt a prickle of apprehension. Jamie couldn't explain the unease. Was it the barely visible tattoo snaking under his collar, the shadow in his smile, or the knowledge that she was playing with fire? Her finger hovered over the screen, but Jamie didn't swipe right. Not yet.
The second I saw her, my insides clenched. There was this weird mix of adrenaline and something else. She stood by the counter, fidgeting with the straw in her iced drink, as if trying to control her nerves. But what really caught me was the flicker behind those warm, brown eyes. Excitement, yeah, but something darker, too. Recognition, like she might understand the shadows I dragged around with me.
Alex?
Her voice was softer than I thought it'd be, and it sent a thrill up my spine I tried to hide. Every corner of this little boho coffee shop felt like a trap. Exposed beams overhead, people chatting around us. Even the clinking of china felt intrusive. With each sip of my too-strong coffee, my hand shook. "This is crazy," I wanted to shout. "Run for your life, girl." But instead, I tried cracking a joke, forced a smile that felt tight.
Every laugh of his sent a shockwave through me. Sure, Alex was hot, that intense smolder in his eyes. But it was the hint of darkness just beneath the surface that did it for me. He was different, an antidote to the safe, boring guys I usually ended up with, but it was more than that. I kept expecting a flinch, a sign of that hidden wound I swore I could see. Then the ambulance siren cut through the air outside. Like a switch flipped, Alex went ice cold, staring past me, eyes wide as if seeing something horrifying. All the humor drained from him, replaced by this raw, terrifying vulnerability. Did I mess up? Had I said something to trigger a flashback? Some buried piece of trauma? I wanted to reach out, comfort him, but I froze too. What kind of mess had I swiped right into?
There was no resisting the urge. It clawed at me the second we walked outside. The smell of exhaust, the pulse of the city's traffic. "The bike's not far," I found myself saying, my voice hoarse. "Can I show you?" I saw it register in her eyes. The thrill, the fear. Exactly what I needed. Her answering smile was intoxicating. Maybe a jolt of adrenaline would drown out the voices, if only for a while. She climbed on behind me, arms circling my waist hesitantly. And just like that, the roar of the engine swallowed everything else. Wind stung my face through the open face shield. A welcome pain. Weaving through traffic, dodging cars, my laughter echoed from inside my helmet. Did she laugh too? Or was she clutching on for dear life? In the rearview mirror, I caught her expression. A flash of wide-eyed exhilaration, fading into something close to panic. Good. Let her dance with fear. She wouldn't truly live until she understood the intoxicating power of being so close to oblivion.
We flew. Up the hill, the cityscape shimmering below us. Neon signs blurred into streaks of light. At first, it was exhilarating. A whirlwind I willingly tumbled into. His confidence was contagious. like somehow holding on to Alex guaranteed I'd stay whole in the chaotic blur. But the thrill warped with each bend in the road. His speed didn't just defy danger, it courted it. We brushed a parked car, and instead of my scream, he howled in glee. My grip tightened around him, nails digging into leather. I closed my eyes for a terrifying second. Bad idea. When I looked again, a truck materialized in front of us, headlights blinding. The world slowed to a nightmarish crawl, me bracing, muscles seizing, his body in front of mine a flimsy shield. Then we swerved, narrowly missing the headlights, a horn blaring as we shot by. He cackled, wild and dangerous. Then I thought I saw his gaze slide towards the approaching bridge railing. I squeezed my eyes shut. If this was how my thrill-seeking ended, maybe the boring town guys hadn't been so bad. I yanked off my helmet the second he pulled over. No way was I getting back on that death machine. The city hummed with an almost deafening stillness around us. What on earth was that? My voice trembled. The cool night air didn't stop the sweat creeping down my back. Are you trying to get us killed?
She looked so small, standing up to me with those brave eyes. Anger twisted something in my guts, battled with another emotion. Admiration or maybe shame. Life's too damn short to play it safe, I muttered, staring past her at the neon lights flickering ominously. That's what all you normals don't understand. A flicker of hurt crossed her face. She wasn't just another boring thrill seeker. Something in her wanted to know the broken mess hidden beneath my helmet.
It felt like you didn't care if we survived.
A bitter laugh rumbled through me. You think death scares me? Death would be kinder than some of the crap I've lived through. I couldn't meet her gaze.
His answer didn't scare me off as much as it intrigued me. What kind of crap could drive someone to fling themselves so readily towards danger? It was more than thrill-seeking. Alex needed oblivion, the adrenaline rush and escape valve for this deep wound he hid yet seemed ready to bleed in front of me. We both have baggage, I began hesitantly, stepping closer. I just don't want my last few minutes alive to be this. I couldn't find the right word. Terrifying? Exciting? Exasperating?
She was too sharp. Maybe a part of me wanted to run her off, prove to her what a truly broken guy looks like. But she wasn't budging. That damn spark of stubbornness wouldn't dim. Maybe she was something different, more like me, than I was ready to admit. Okay, I conceded, more to myself than to her. Maybe I was pushing it far. An understatement. My hand ran through my hair, finding the dampness underneath. What the hell? I choked out the next words. You want to see crazy? Come, I'll show you.
The detour seemed as haphazard as Alex himself. One minute we were back on well-lit streets. The next we were weaving under dripping tree branches onto a road that seemed to shrink around us.
The city never really sleeps,
he grunted.
Too many damn demons out there waiting to crawl into my head.
I didn't need the clarification. I knew he wasn't talking about the street. Fog seeped from the forest shadows, swirling under the motorcycle's weak headlight. My unease escalated. This wasn't just darkness. The dense mist swirled, obscuring even the road ahead. It felt oddly personal, like it was reaching for me. Alex, maybe this wasn't a great idea. My words trailed off. Had his eyes always looked so wild?
The trees pressed in like suffocating walls. In the rearview mirror, I swore the darkness chased us, thicker than any normal fog. I had been here once before, the night she died. That night, the trees had wept and the shadows hissed accusations. But I was medicated then, safe from the horror behind the mask of reality. A chilling voice pierced my thoughts. Was it mine, hers, or the whispering of the road? I should have let you die. The words scraped raw from my throat, like shards of glass. Was I confessing something to Jamie, or reliving it out loud? Fear twisted with guilt. Every flicker of fog-shaped figures triggered memories buried deep inside. The accident, blood, and accusations too horrific to even think. I needed something to focus on. Jamie. This girl had courage, or maybe she was just plain crazy. Either way, her presence pulled me out of the encroaching madness. Hold on tight, I growled, desperation lacing my voice. The only way out of this mess is through it. Revving the engine, I plunged us deeper into the unnatural night.
He gunned the motorcycle forward, leaving behind any pretense of safety. Something inside me mirrored his desperation. Whether I was running from him, the fear swallowing us, or towards that tiny sliver of hope at the end of this cursed road, I couldn't say. My fingers ached with how tightly I clung to him. Maybe I should scream, cry, demand he stop. But deep down, the reckless exhilaration hadn't faded entirely. Then came the whispers. It was more than the chilling rustle of the fog. Faint but growing louder, words hissed from all directions, weaving a story only I seemed to hear. About a girl, a crash. Words like dead and killer slithered under my skin, but before I could process them, a different sound sent a cold spike of terror through me. From somewhere up ahead, a woman screamed. The wail cut through me even over the motorcycle's roar, piercing in its horror. Alex jolted. This wasn't some hallucination. He'd heard it too. The bike fishtailed slightly, fear warring with determination as he wrestled with the handlebars. I squeezed my eyes shut, the phantom of that scream ringing in my ears. Had Alex led us here for a macabre spectacle? Or was he dragging me into something far worse than my worst nightmares?
Her grip tightened until I swore she was trying to strangle me. We both heard the scream echoing from somewhere within this infernal fog. Another twisted joke played by my haunted mind? The ghosts of past sins wouldn't be so easy to silence this time. I could taste the acidic guilt clawing up my throat. Had I truly brought an unwitting accomplice to this cursed place? I fought the instinct to slam on the brakes. If Jamie could sense the shadows swirling around me, the voices of the past, she deserved to run. I deserved to face this alone. My hands twitched on the handlebars, and a scream of my own rose, lost in the swirling mist. I wasn't going back to that place, back to the madness waiting for me in the dark. The headlights carved a desperate path through the thickening fog. Somewhere up ahead, something waited. Something worse than nightmares. That woman screamed again, and as my motorcycle plowed through the fog, her face swam into focus. But not just her face, dozens of them, spectral and accusatory. My ex-wife, her pale features shimmering with ghostly tears. My brother, bloodied and twisted from the wreck. Everyone I'd lost, everyone I'd hurt, materialized around us, their screams mingling with Jamie's terrified shouts. "Get them away!" I roared, but my voice came out cracked and broken. My hands fought the wheel, jerking uncontrollably. Were those figures real? They felt real, their touch almost tangibly icy. The line between my memories, my guilt, and this damned fog had dissolved entirely. The voices were deafening now. "Kill her! Worthless! Leave her. She deserves to live." The voices weren't just around me anymore. They were inside me.
His laughter shattered the air, a guttural, deranged sound that drowned out the whispers now circling me. The fog no longer obscured. It transformed. Faces shimmered within its swirling masses, not just menacing, but familiar. I recognized my family, their mouths twisted into monstrous parodies of themselves, whispering my deepest regrets. Failure. Unloved. It's all your fault. These couldn't be real. This was my subconscious turned against me, an echo of past hurts. Why the hell had I thought this night with a madman on a motorcycle would be anything but dangerous? A hand ice cold brushed the back of my neck. There was nothing there, but I screamed anyway. My mind was unraveling. And in this madness, it wasn't just me Alex was fighting against. I couldn't make sense of what he muttered under his breath. Apologies, a name I didn't know, and a strange plea for forgiveness. Had my presence stirred an old trauma so deep that even this terrifying fog didn't compare? Ahead, the road veered sharply, leading into a wall of dense mist. Alex seemed possessed, accelerating even as we careened towards the drop-off. I was caught between two horrors, the one behind me on the seat and the one looming within the fog. Survival instincts ignited. This was madness, and I didn't have to follow him into it.
It was her name that snapped me back from the brink. Jamie's name, spoken by spectral lips. They wanted her too, these ghosts and demons. Jamie was innocent. I wasn't anymore. "Jump!" The word tore from me as we hurtled toward the bushes. My last act of sanity, or insanity itself, it didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was her. If Jamie could survive this night, escape my demons, well, maybe somewhere deep inside, I still possessed a scrap of decency. A monstrous shriek rose up through the fog as I launched us directly towards the void. I closed my eyes, ready for the obliteration that might finally erase the voices, the pain, everything. But I wasn't ready, no, not yet. Not ready for my world to come to a bone-rattling, jarring end like this. The darkness engulfed me, an echo of something else. My screams intermingling with Jamie's in a strange, terrifying harmony. There was light, blinding, flashing lights, and the piercing wail of sirens cutting through the residual wisps of fog. Then the voices came again, but deeper, guttural, monstrous. "Run!" I commanded Jamie, pushing her from the overturned motorcycle. Fear propelled me, turning the concerned faces of approaching officers into demonic masks. Every authoritative order became a threat, every outstretched hand a clawed appendage. The fog thinned, but darkness was all I could see. There was blood, hers, splattered on my sleeve and a jagged pain in my side. But I had to keep going. They were pursuing us, relentless hunters, seeking out a monster with their demonic torches. I shoved Jamie into the skeletal ruins of an old barn, pulling a splintering wooden panel shut, worthless camouflage. But they weren't pursuing Jamie, it was me.
I don't remember much after I jumped. A wall of shrubs and intense fear greeted me, and I didn't feel a damn thing when I hit the bushes going at a demonically fast speed. A siren pierced through the ringing in my ears. Were the police really here? Had the scream not gone unnoticed after all? But as I squinted through the haze, my hope quickly soured to new terror. Alex. He was unhinged. He didn't see rescuers. He saw monstrous shapes moving on him, closing in for the kill. Their authoritative shouts only stoked his panic, pushing him deeper into his delusion. My stomach twisted. Where was the line between reality and his nightmare? Was there some unseen horror out there, or was he the monstrous threat? We weren't safe here. Even if the officers outside weren't the demons he conjured, there was no hiding. Alex would tear this place apart, drag me deeper into his chaotic, paranoid world. I had to escape. The barn was pitch black, but I stumbled around, feeling for an escape route. Anything. Then a flashlight beam ripped through the darkness. Had I been spotted?
I lunged for the darkness, for anything that seemed like an escape, but there was none. Every shadow turned menacing, the very walls of the crumbling barn pressing in. With a roar that was hardly human, I charged. Through the beam of that damnable flashlight, a monstrous form lurched and shrieked. My hands clamped around its bony throat, teeth bared, ready to bite. It snarled and flailed, a horrific mirror match of my own monstrous transformation. Then it screeched something. Familiar, but the realization shattered. The cops swarmed. The real ones, their yells human after all. They wrestled me to the ground, hands tightening, restraints snapping. A different breed of confinement waiting just outside the barn doors.
I watched from the shadowy upper level of the barn as Alex struggled against the police. Then I saw that grotesque creature. It lay prone in the center of the dirt floor. Was it real? A trick of the darkness? No, that broken wing. An owl? That's what triggered Alex's final spiral. An innocent creature warped by his broken mind. There was an awful realization settling deep inside. Even amidst his darkness, there was a vulnerability, the way he'd pushed me towards safety, and his frantic plea to run. Guilt knotted alongside the lingering terror. Had I done something tonight that tipped him over the edge? What kind of nightmare had I stepped into? And could I leave him to that nightmare now?
They dragged me out. I was writhing, cursing, spitting my fear and hate into the blinding spotlight of the squad car. The last glimpse I caught was her silhouette in the barn's rafters. Jamie. There had been a spark of understanding in her eyes, a hint of pity she wouldn't give voice to. It only fueled the anger, then snuffed it out in a surge of hopeless exhaustion. They shoved me in the car, slamming the door. All went quiet. Darkness swallowed me, a terrifying relief after the screaming chaos. This night, I wasn't sure how much they saw of what lived inside me, how completely gone I was. But it was over. Not even the voices bothered me anymore. Just a hollowness. My screams might be silent now, but my destruction hadn't ended. And Jamie wouldn't forget that. The consequences I left in my wake, those lingered even in the silence.
Where had Alex gone? Was he writhing in the back of the police car, sedated into silence? Committed somewhere for treatment? Locked away forever? I shivered. Had I unleashed a demon back into the world? That image, his wild eyes, his desperate lunge for escape, chilled me more than any supernatural horrors. The quiet hung heavy. There was only the rustle of dry hay under my feet. Relief wasn't the emotion I'd expected. Instead, a strange echo of his fear seeped into the silence. He needed something. Help? Punishment? Forgiveness? It wasn't my job to offer any of that. But his words on that terrifying ride resonated. The confession of nightmares, the fear of demons lurking where no one else could see. Alex wasn't just running from police. He was running from himself, from something inside. And even after tonight, a nagging question remained. Had the scariest monsters tonight been truly supernatural? Moonlight fell through a crack in the roof, dusting the barn floor below. With a shuddering breath, I climbed down from the rafters and into the cool night. I needed distance from this place, from Alex, from my own reckless decision that sent us hurtling into darkness. I could barely walk. The adrenaline had worn off, and I felt every twig and leaf that I crashed into. But what about those voices? Those faces I had clearly seen? The voices weren't mine, but something stirred within me, an uncertainty laced with fear. Did we all hide shadows? And when those shadows were unleashed, who were the real monsters? Alex might be the one locked away now, but his darkness lingered as a chilling reminder. This night had changed me, and the road stretching ahead, well, maybe the mundane town with its safe guys wasn't what I wanted after all. After tonight, perhaps a flicker of danger, maybe understood better than most, wasn't a bad thing. Then, as if on cue, my body unable to continue, gave out, and it was blackout. When I woke up, it was still dark, a stark ache in my limbs and a heavy cloak of dread. I couldn't remember how I'd fallen asleep, but the odd thing was that I was a few miles from the abandoned barn, curled up at the base of an ancient oak tree. I remember how odd it felt, no sound, and even the stars seemed as if they were timidly sharing their light with me. A lone squad car with someone in the back seat idled at the road's edge, its red and blue lights flashing with silent urgency. An icy knot twisted in my gut. Was Alex still there? Hey! I stumbled towards the car, my muscles protesting with each step. Had something else happened out here after I passed out? An eerie suspicion replaced the fear as the window lowered not by an officer's hand, but seemingly on its own accord. Behind the tinted glass, two sets of impossibly empty eyes bored into me. I swallowed a strangled gasp. This wasn't real. Not again. Not the hollow stares. Not the voices of shadows that surely lurked just out of sight. Suddenly, a jolt of pain seared through my skull and my vision swirled. Rough hands grabbed me, and a strange muffled voice pierced the rising panic. The officer's face morphed into an unfamiliar one, filled with concern. Then again, everything faded into darkness. When I came to, my world tilted sideways, feeling as if I would end up vomiting all of last night. Harsh fluorescent lights stabbed at my eyes. Clean white walls replaced skeletal trees, a cacophony of sterile machines replacing the whispers of the night.
Miss, can you hear me?
An insistent voice pierced through the fog of pain.
You've been in an accident.
My eyes fell on the nurse. Kind, her smile a lifeline in this unsettling scene. Then a memory flashed. The motorcycle, the crash, Alex. The numbing void in my heart screamed to life. My throat closed. Alex, the bike?
Don't worry about him.
The nurse soothed, a flicker of something unnerving in her gaze.
He's being dealt with. They're taking good care of him. Here, try some water.
As she lifted me gently, my body protested with a fresh bolt of pain. I gasped, clutching at my side. It all came rushing back. That fog, I murmured, more to myself than the nurse. The fragments of that impossible night started slotting into place, not neatly but jaggedly, as if my vision was still cracked. I felt my eyes widen. Where does reality end and the trauma-fueled hallucination begin? I needed answers, and it wasn't just Alex's condition I found myself desperate to understand. It was the state of my own mind. I had to know how much of my horrifying escape was real. My escape turned out to be the stale confines of a rural hospital. Clean white walls instead of dripping trees, hushed conversations instead of eerie screeches. No answers waited here, only an uncomfortable sense of limbo. News trickled in fragments. Some kind of freak motorcycle accident, they said. Alex was alive, under psychiatric supervision. No charges, but no release date either. I could have cried with relief or frustration. What I felt was a numbing emptiness. The nurse entered, her brow furrowed.
There's a man asking for you.
Her voice held a thinly veiled warning. I wanted to refuse, but some morbid curiosity won. Sergeant Harris took me aside and began collecting my statement. He asked if I wanted to press charges since Alex had treated my life with reckless abandon. I didn't have it within me to do so. I just wanted the nightmare to end and to shower and to sleep for the next 2 weeks. He took down my details and thanked me for my time. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Instead, fragments of the night slotted into place. The faces I'd seen in the fog, my own fears given shape. Each whisper carried not malice, but an echo of my deepest insecurities. It wasn't a supernatural hell Alex had led me to. It was an infernal reflection of his own. And for one dreadful moment, I'd become part of that tormented landscape. In the stark glow of the hospital lights, a different kind of revelation washed over me. I'd chased something beyond excitement, beyond boredom. I sought my own shadows, hoping to see some proof I wasn't as predictable as I feared. In Alex, I saw what those shadows looked like when untamed, and it scared me. But if a flicker of that same dark potential lived inside me, then I also carried the capacity for courage, to fight it, overcome it. My decision, run from the darkness or confront the echoes within myself. It would define me long after the ride with a stranger, and the ghostly chill he trailed behind him would fade into memory. They let him out. I didn't hear it announced. There was just a prickling sense of wrongness threading through the brightly lit hospital hallway. Eyes drawn against my will, I found him outside the double doors. Pale, thinner, but those green eyes burned brighter than ever as he was placed inside the cop car. For a heartbeat, a flare of panic almost overwhelmed me. The urge to bolt or simply disappear as though he couldn't truly see me. It took every ounce of resolve to walk down that polished floor, toward what used to be my worst nightmare. This couldn't be a repeat of that endless ride where I was prey in his twisted world. Now, the clinical backdrop held no shadows to fuel his delusions.
Leaving?
His voice sounded almost casual and very ironic, just enough bite to remind me of his teeth. Going home, alive, no thanks to you. I kept my voice level, devoid of fear. I wasn't the scared girl lost in his fog anymore. He flinched ever so slightly. My indifference cut deeper than any accusation.
I saw them again.
He whispered, eyes pleading more than threatening.
Those faces, they blame me. You see them too, right?
There it was. The hunger for something to justify his darkness, to confirm his fear that he was beyond salvation. It was tempting, almost easy, to play into his narrative, to leave him alone with his haunting. But there was something crueler, more honest in denying him even that twisted comfort. No, Alex, I said with a resolve I barely felt. It was just fog. Just shadows. Rage sparked in those haunted eyes. An unhinged tirade hung unspoken as he clenched his fists. Yet beneath that familiar madness, I saw a flash of doubt. A desperate hope for just one person to validate his reality. And my denial echoed like a death sentence for the demon he sought. The fight seemed to drain out of him. Shoulders slumping, his hands uncurled, a flicker of the broken boy inside emerged. Get out of my face, I said sternly, finally walking past him. Find your shadows somewhere else, and don't ever come looking for me. He never looked back. The cop car left, and I didn't want pity to be my last gift to him. But this encounter would shape him nonetheless. My refusal to see his monstrousness meant he'd face it alone. And maybe, just maybe, if he was strong enough, he'd fight those demons on his own terms. Either way, he wouldn't find them mirrored in my eyes again. My footsteps carried me out into the daylight. I still held my share of darkness, but I wouldn't feed it on fear. And while my life would never be the same, my path lay out front, illuminated by my own choices, not by the ghosts of nights long past. The Uber's seat felt alien, unfamiliar and overly safe after a night in the grip of wildness. Yet, this sterile world, once so stifling, felt like a refuge. My reflection in the window was smudged and bleary, a haunting I chose to carry away rather than leave behind. The sunrise broke without fanfare, washing away the night's horrors with mundane daylight. But that dawn brought no tidy ending, no sense of normalcy returning. Ahead, the open highway felt less like an escape route and more like a battlefield. Alex's demons remained locked away, his fate uncertain, the shadows that connected us unbreakable. What haunted me wasn't my own near miss with those swirling horrors, or even the terrifying potential lurking within myself. Instead, it was the lingering knowledge of what could become of a man shattered by trauma, consumed by his own darkness. But beneath the tremor in my hands there was steel. I had stared into the abyss and found not my own destruction, but a spark of will, defiant and resilient. I'd survived more than my night on the back of a motorcycle. I'd survived the realization that within all of us lurks both light and darkness, the capacity for terror and courage. It was a brutal lesson, paid for in someone else's blood-soaked mistakes. The car pulled to a stop outside my familiar little house, and for a moment I considered staying in the quiet limbo of the back seat. What lay ahead, the stares, the whispers, the endless retelling of that night, it would require facing a different kind of horror. Maybe even my own quiet town would morph into a landscape of suspicion and fear. But fear couldn't be my guiding star anymore. The road forward remained shrouded in uncertainty. But this dawn carried the weight of a different kind of battle, one waged with scars both visible and unseen. This time, I would be the architect of my own fate, navigating the unknown with a survivor's resolve etched on my soul.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Quantum Dispatches, and stay tuned next week for another thrilling adventure. Thank you for listening.